What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Finn of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. And I wanted to do a quick video just giving my final thoughts before we head into the 2024 NFL Draft. Tonight, the Kansas City Chiefs will be selecting at pick number 32, but of course that is always subject to change. But I wanted to give you guys my final thoughts heading into draft day, draft night, because I felt like I fell a little bit behind this year in draft coverage and just videos and content leading up to the draft, talking about different prospects, mock drafts, all that good stuff. But I'm going to go over real quickly before tonight's draft, what I expect of the Chiefs, the different scenarios that could play out, what I think they need. So without further ado, let's talk draft. So the general feeling that I get heading into tonight's draft is that the Kansas City Chiefs really would like to draft an offensive tackle. That's just kind of been where the smoke is the last several days leading up to tonight, is that the Chiefs would like to draft a tackle. Pretty Ricky, everyone's favorite offseason character who has been a fan turned insider this offseason on Twitter. He's gotten like almost every single move right. He says he's 99% sure the Chiefs come out of round one with a left tackle. Tony Pauline, who is an NFL draft analyst, said that he's pretty sure that the Kansas City Chiefs want to select Kingsley Suamataia, the BYU offensive tackle. And that does check out to the Chiefs' needs. They probably do need a tackle in this draft at some point. Me personally, I'm just not that big of a proponent of the Chiefs drafting a left tackle with their first pick, or really in the first couple of picks, because I don't know, guys. Like, we drafted Wanya Morris last year in the top 100, I believe, and I haven't given up on him yet. And you still have Juwan Taylor on the other side. I still think this team is probably going to sign a veteran tackle after the draft. So I don't see the pressing need to draft a left tackle. I think a veteran plus another year of Wanya Morris is fine. But I understand that the Chiefs want to get a tackle, or if they think a surefire guy or a blue chip is there in the first round. I have some concerns, or not really concerns, but questions about the sentiment that the Chiefs will draft an offensive tackle, like people are saying, like they're insistent that they will draft an offensive tackle. I don't know how you can say that without seeing how the board falls first. Yes, I'm sure they would like to draft an offensive tackle if the board falls correctly, but that's not what people are saying. And like Tony Pauline said they'll draft Kingsley Suamataia. How do you know that one specific individual player will be there at 32? And then I've seen, different suggestions that the Chiefs could trade up for Kingsley Suamataia. I like Suamataia. I don't think you need to trade up for him, though. I wouldn't waste assets doing that. And I'm not really sure that I would trade up unless it was a true blue chip that you're taking in the first round, like Trent McDuffie, who the Chiefs just did not expect to be there a couple of years ago, and they traded up for him. This could go for wide receiver, too, as well. I believe this is a very deep wide receiver draft, and I know people say that every year. Oh, this is a deep draft. This is a deep draft for this position. It legitimately is a very deep wide receiver class. So I'm actually okay if the Chiefs wait until the second round to address wide receiver. But I do think the top two rounds has to be some combination of wide receiver and maybe tackle or defensive line, something like that. Because outside of like the top 4 or 5 guys, so like Brian Thomas, Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, MHJ, even after that you have Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, Troy Franklin, Xavier Legette, Javon Baker, Tez Walker, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey. Like, there are so many names, whereas like even last year, you had to kind of grab a wide receiver by the second round before talent really started to drop off. And you don't want to wait too long. But look, if a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. falls like mid-20s, I wouldn't be a problem if the Chiefs traded up for him. I do have some concerns about some of the wide receivers in this class. I know I just mentioned like A.D. Mitchell and Troy Franklin. I'm not as big on those guys, but at the same time, those are also not picks that I would lose sleep over. I think it's going to be really hard to mess up wide receiver in this draft. There are so many guys that can help you out in different ways. Like Troy Franklin, for example, I don't love him because I feel like he's a little bit of an MVS clone. I feel like he's kind of one-dimensional. concerns about being press man coverage, but he can stretch the field. He's got good speed. So, he could help next year. I wouldn't lose sleep over that pick. It's almost kind of like Jalen Hyatt last year. I said Jalen Hyatt, as a rookie, would have a very specific role for you. I don't know if his ceiling is as high as other wide receivers, but you know what he's going to give you as a rookie most likely. He's going to run those post routes and those go routes, and he'll give you about 500 yards. That's okay. But to kind of put a bow on my wide receiver thoughts, it's a deep draft. The Chiefs shouldn't do anything unnecessary. They shouldn't do anything crazy. I think if they just stick to their evaluations, let the board play out, they'll be just fine. And if that leads to them taking a wide receiver at pick 32, cool. I think that's a great idea. I mean, this team needs a wide receiver very badly. If they decide that there's probably going to be good value in the second round, perfectly fine with that because of how deep this class is. And also, the Chiefs could still trade up in the second round for a wide receiver, even if they feel like there's a run going on wide receivers and they got to go up and grab their guy. It doesn't have to be waiting until pick 64. Because if you look at the Rashee Rice pick last year, the Chiefs traded up for Rashee Rice pretty easily. They traded up for Mecole Hardman a couple of years ago. Now, the Mecole Hardman pick looking questionable now, but the Chiefs will have the ability to move up, even after being a successful franchise. Now people will say, oh, no one wants to help the Chiefs. If the Chiefs offer a good package to move up in the second round, a team will take that because these teams are also looking out for themselves too. They're not all that concerned about the Chiefs. Now, trading up in the first round is a little bit different. Brett Veach talked about last year how they tried to trade up in the first round. Nobody really wanted to help them out. So they may run into that again this year in the first round. But after the first round, I wouldn't expect that to be too much of a problem. All right, now diving a little bit more into Chiefs' needs. I believe they do need to address defensive line at some point in the top 3 to 4 rounds. I do not like where this defensive tackle room stands. I know the Kansas City Chiefs have been looking at defensive tackles, most notably Michael Hall, the Ohio State defensive tackle. He visited the Chiefs in the pre-draft process. I believe that the Chiefs want to address defensive line. The question just becomes where, because you have those top needs on offense. I also saw a tweet earlier today saying that the Chiefs have not spent any top 50 picks on offense since CEH in the 2020 NFL draft. You need to invest in your offense, especially with how much they struggled last year. So they obviously need to come first. But defensively, I think this team needs a talent injection on the defensive line. With Charles Omenihu being out next year for the first chunk of the season, I'm not a huge fan of Mike Dana being the starter. Felix Anudike-Uzomah is kind of an unknown. I like George Karlaftis, but I've always thought that he was better suited as a DN too. Not saying you're going to grab a defensive end number 1 in this draft, but I would like to see them add somebody there. And preferably, I would like to see them add a guy that maybe is an interior lineman that can kick outside, or an outside defensive lineman that can play a lot inside, kind of like Charles Omenihu. Darius Robinson of Missouri comes to mind. If you don't grab him in the first round, it feels like you're not going to get him. But a guy like that, I'm just kind of using him as an example because he kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Because we know this defensive tackle room behind Chris Jones is pretty weak, and we know that the defensive end room is in a little bit of need for depth. So definitely want to see the Chiefs address defensive line, but offense comes first this year. Now, this is where I wish the Kansas City Chiefs did a little bit more in free agency prior to the draft. They were just kind of content on running it back everywhere outside of the Hollywood Brown signing, which is fine to an extent because, you did just win the Super Bowl. You don't want too much complacency. You want to be bringing in new blood. And a perfect example of this is the running back position. So far, the only running backs the Kansas City Chiefs have under contract next year are Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I like Pacheco. I've gone back and forth on him. At this point, I really don't think he should be a number 1 running back. I think he'd be better suited as a 1B to someone else's 1A label. And we saw his shortcomings at times last year, especially in the Super Bowl. There were times where the run game was getting shut down. With how good this offensive line is, the run game shouldn't be getting shut down. You want to bring in a guy that you can just lean on where, the Chiefs take a double-digit lead and then they're just able to hand the ball off 15 times in the second half. You know, that would be nice. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you're Isaiah Pacheco injury away from CEH being your running back one. Didn't understand that re-signing. I don't get the infatuation with CEH. That feels like Brett Veach trying to squeeze a little bit more juice out of that draft pick. But really, he should be nothing more than a break glass in case of emergency guy. I don't think he should be in your top 3, even in his redemption year, per se. He only averaged 3.2 yards per carry. He killed a lot of drives. Even in games where he only had like 4 to 5 touches, it's like those 4 to 5 touches really stood out as someone who kind of killed us. And that's never a good thing. So I think the Chiefs have pigeonholed themselves into having to draft a running back relatively early in this draft. And when I say relatively early, I mean like round 4, early day 3 is kind of when you need to start looking at running back, especially because this isn't a very good running back class. You need someone from this class with juice and athleticism to add to this running back room. Someone that can take advantage of those outside zone runs. Somebody that maybe has a little bit better vision than Pacheco. And there were opportunities to bring in veteran free agents. J.K. Dobbins was kind of the last chance of someone that would move the needle, a veteran running back. You let him go to the Los Angeles Chargers, whatever. A lot of people aren't losing sleep over J.K. Dobbins because of the injury history, but I thought he would have helped. I would have liked him a hell of a lot more than CEH, but for some reason the team opted for the familiar face CEH over the objectively better player J.K. Dobbins, which still frustrates me. But it is what it is. Now you have to draft a running back because there's not really anyone left in free agency that's going to help before or after the draft. The options have just kind of dried up. So the Chiefs have left themselves in no choice but to come away from this draft with at least one running back. I know people are going to say, oh, Jerick McKinnon's still available. Jerick McKinnon's going to be 32 next month. He barely made it across the finish line of last season. And if you bring him back anyway, you're just running back the same running back group from last year, and that doesn't raise the ceiling at all. That's not getting better. You need new blood. And I don't like where this running back room sits currently. I also know that some people are going to suggest, oh, you can just grab a UDFA and you'll be fine. No, you can't, because they tried that last year with Deneric Prince, and that didn't work out, did it? You can't rely on a UDFA to come in, fill that need, and then make an impact as a rookie. It's just unlikely. Most UDFAs don't make an impact. Not saying the Chiefs can't find a UDFA running back to contribute, but that shouldn't be plan A. A couple names that I like at running back. I really like Blake Watson out of Memphis. I also believe he provides some good pass catching ability out of the backfield. I also really like Isaiah Guerendo out of Louisville. I've taken him in a lot of my mock drafts because I love the athleticism with him. Speedster, I would love him in this running back room. So those are just a couple names I like. But yeah, the objective is to get a guy with some juice. All right, and then I'm going to end this thoughts video on what I want the Chiefs to do at pick number 32 tonight. Honestly, this is going to be a lame answer. I just want them to take either the best tackle or best wide receiver available. It's pretty simple. But something that I would be trying to do, and I haven't seen too many people say this, although I'm sure it's in the back of some people's minds, I would really like to see the Chiefs trade back out of 32 and maybe add another pick in the middle rounds. Maybe there's a team that wants to get a quarterback on a 5th-year option. I'm thinking of a name like Spencer Rattler. Maybe like the Denver Broncos trade back up into the first round and grab Spencer Rattler or a name like that. That said, you don't see that as much anymore because I think teams have kind of started to devalue the 5th-year option, because if you draft a quarterback on a 5th-year option and he becomes a good player, the 5th-year option isn't really worth all that much. I mean, it's nice to have the team control, but most quarterbacks are getting extended before that 5th-year option, or if you try to play them on that 5th-year option without a new contract, they're just going to sit out. It's worth remembering that the Kansas City Chiefs are only going to have so many first-round grades in this draft. There's going to be more picks in the first round than there are players with a first-round grade, but they have to do something with the pick, right? But that's why I say that trading back should definitely be an option. Brett Veach hasn't traded back that much in his career, but I'd definitely be trying to do that in tonight's draft. And then, of course, like I said, if a blue chip player falls, maybe you trade up, and that would be exciting. That would give us something to talk about, especially earlier on. I know that, those drafts, night number 1 and round 1 is like 5 hours long, and we're just going to be like killing ourselves by the time we get to pick 32 because we just want the thing to be over. But yeah, those are my thoughts, final thoughts heading into the 2024 NFL draft. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about what I had to say? What do you want to see the Kansas City Chiefs do in the first round tonight? Let me know down below. With all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com for more. Also, if you're around, check out the Arrowhead Addict YouTube channel, where I'll be appearing on the Arrowhead Addict podcast tonight with Patrick Allen, Matt Connor, and Sterling Holmes. Picks 7 through 12 to talk draft with those guys. Really looking forward to that. Hope to see you guys there. But I'll see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!